From 18 months old to 3 years old, I was babysat and watched by a family that actually happened to be occult traffickers.
There's 28 million people being trafficked globally. $99 billion is spent on sex trafficking in a year. 20% of all men are buyers, like in any population. The age of our trafficking victims is going down. The average age is 12. One question I get all the time, like, how do I spot sex trafficking? It's like, well, you might not be able to. That's why it's so insidious, is it is woven into the fabric of society. It's hard to spot, but it's there. We really wouldn't have what we would call a human trafficking problem, right? If it weren't for the commercial sex industry, because it's where it lives. The average age for like first exposure to pornographic images is around 9 now. There seems to be a logical progression from engaging in pornographic desires and then wanting the real thing. It is driven by demand. Not everyone's going to make the jump, but I think enough people are that it's fueling the commercial sex industry and creating all the motivation I would need if I was a trafficker to recruit young people into it. You have these three populations, right? You have the buyers, and they have their own motivations, and then you have the victims, and they're the people that are being used to service the buyers, and then you have the traffickers. And these are the people that are recruiting, transporting, benefiting from, arranging the commercial sex. They are incentivized to get people that don't have consent, identify and recruit and groom people that are vulnerable.
Because this happened so young, that was the beginning of life for me. So it kind of set the tone for feeling like that was normal, caused me to be vulnerable, to be exploited again and again and again. In each exploitation experience, I didn't fully understand what was happening to me. The next exploitation that happened was at age 14 with a pimp that was grooming me and teaching me about the game, having me watch videos, would show me the Blade in San Francisco where other girls were working, and it felt normal. You know, it was like this mix of trauma, but also like, oh, he sees me, he cares about me. All of this has a sense of like not being able to recognize red flags. I didn't have the ability to see that this is a bad opportunity. This is not a safe person.
So commercial sex doesn't happen in like thin air, like it happens in venues. Your venues tend to be the internet. So this is internet-based escorting. And then there's storefronts, some kind of business which has some constitutionally protected purpose, but once you get through, the front door, it's commercial sex. And a great example of this would be like illicit massage businesses. And then the last one is street level prostitution. The whole point of the venue is all those three populations, the traffickers, the buyers, and the victim survivors, they gravitate to that venue. I
continued to be exploited in strip clubs and hotels and to the elite in Hollywood. And I would just end up in these mansions, drugged and raped over the course of my life. I was trafficked and exploited 5 times. And I thought, what is my life worth now after this has happened to me? When you want to get out of a sex trafficking situation, all of the fear of, is anybody else gonna love me? Is anybody else gonna protect me? Is anybody else gonna make sure that I have food to eat?
The obvious barriers are the logistical barriers. Like, I don't have credit. I don't have a place to live. I think the hardest is like a very narrow vision of your worth and your opportunities. You are adopting the vision of whatever the trafficker wants you to see.
I remember I was literally on the floor of a mansion in Malibu, just bawling my eyes out. And I realized at that moment that I was really, really broken. I'd experienced so much trauma, so many ways that I had been abused, and I just came to the end of trying to figure things out myself. And I dedicated my life to the Lord. And from that moment on, that's when everything changed. When you exit a situation where your body is being sold and exploited, all of the trauma of what you went through is still there. Just because someone has escaped, it doesn't mean that they're free from sex trafficking.
If nobody's there to walk with them and help them see things differently and provide the logistical needs that are also very real, the whole thing will fall apart. And so aftercare is super important.
It's really important for service providers to listen to what they need. Allow there to be trauma-informed care where there is a sense of safety, choice, and a sense of being able to collaborate. And then moving forward, dreaming, I think, is a really big part of being able to stay free so they have a reason to live, a reason to move forward in life, and a reason to not go back. Life now for me is filled with purpose. I saw the power of sharing my story and what that means for people to receive hope and to know that if it was possible for me to heal, it's possible for them to heal. It's a way that I can make sure that none of my pain was wasted.
If you help a victim get out, but you leave the trafficker in place, they'll recruit somebody new. And if you take a trafficker out, but they still have a network in place, somebody will take the place because they have a ready-made way to make money. But the buyers are not networked. So if you remove a buyer because they get scared or because they get arrested, nobody replaces them. And so the only way I've seen to move a needle in a community is hardcore demand reduction.
The way we stop the demand for sex trafficking is first in prevention. Prevention has to start in the home. It's more than just talking about the facts. It's also creating a culture that is absent of shame and judgment. Because you can have these conversations around the dinner table with your family.
We need to teach our sons that buying sex is slavery. I don't know of anybody that would say slavery is okay, but we still have a significant number of men who think that buying sex is okay, and I'd like them to connect those two dots. I think if they did, and if we could pull back the curtain on the human suffering that's happening because of them, I think less people would buy sex. That's the lesson that I'm teaching my sons. I think that's the lesson hopefully we can pass down to all of our sons, because only then is it going to change.
By literally shining a very aggressive light on the commercial sex industry, we can help people escape darkness.